Welcome back, everybody, to the 211 Fast Break podcast. I'm Sean Kennedy, joined as always by our NFL handicapper, Dan Erta. Dan, I got good news and bad news for you. The good news is, for the first time in a month, you didn't go 500 last week. Can you guess what the bad news is?
The bad news is that I went 1-2-1. But how is it? It's not good news that I didn't go 500 if I went under 500.
It's good. You don't want a 500 week though.
I don't want an under 500 week either. You know what?
That's the bad news.
I'm resigned to the fact that this isn't my year. I was out in our Survivor League week 1. I'm out of all fantasy leagues right now, and my record against the spread has not been at the level where it has in the past. I'm just trying. Number one, I'm not going to worry about it and try to make up for lost time and start betting on games that I don't like. And number two, I'm just going to try to enjoy watching football the rest of the year. And if I can win some games, great. But if not, you know what? It's not like I'm losing. It's not like I'm 20 games under 500 where I'm losing an insurmountable number of bets. Just trying to enjoy the rest of the season.
Really strong words for our listeners out there of why they should value your input in games.
I'm a realistic person. If I'm under 500 for the year, I'm not going to say, no guys, you got to follow all my picks.
Okay.
I got to earn that back. I have to earn that kind of respect back.
All right, so before we get to earning that respect, let's quickly recap what went wrong in Week 14 for you. It started in that Thursday night game where you were very high on Chicago. You liked them a lot at plus 3.5. And despite a late charge in the second half, picking up a lot of garbage time points, they weren't in that game at all, and it started early, and it started often for that Cowboys offense.
Man, that would have been the greatest backdoor cover in the history of my betting career ever.
Yeah, they tried.
They did try, and Dallas did their best to let them back in the game, but the truth is, Bears are just atrocious. And that's the thing that you have to look for going forward is, you can line stats up, you can say this team has a good run defense, this team has a good pass defense going up against the quarterback, whatever. What you really got to look for Week 15 on, or actually should have been Week 13, 14 on, is teams that are just done. The Bears are just done. There's absolutely no reason that a team with, I don't care that Jay Cutler's not that good, any team that has the weapons that he has and a human body throwing the ball to those weapons should be better than them. But that team just doesn't care.
To be fair, Brandon Marshall did almost die early in that game.
That is true. Brandon Marshall did almost die early in that game.
Fortunately, he's only has a punctured lung and some cracked ribs. But they were down one weapon. But I think we knew going into that game that the problem would be that Bears defense, and one of the worst rushing defenses in the league. And Cowboys just force-fed DeMarco Murray the ball. He had over 30 touches in the game, all told, and the Bears were just in no position to stop him at any point. And that's what happened. They poured it on early, and if it wasn't for the Dallas defense being not the formidable unit that people began to think it was when they had the hot start against some poor opponents early in the year, it would have been even a more lopsided margin by the end. But
it's just annoying because this gives Dallas all kinds of confidence. If Dallas had blown this game, I kind of think that team would have fallen apart at the seams a little bit. You would have seen Dez Bryant blowing up on the sidelines. You would have heard murmurs that Romo's still hurt, which I thought he was going into the game. And now it stinks. Now this Dallas-Philly game on Sunday means the world to both teams, when I was kind of hoping, even if Chicago just kept it close, Dallas kind of started to look really bad for a couple of weeks, and I kind of was hoping for that to continue.
Yeah, the old Dallas 8-8 every year talk would have intensified.
Yeah, exactly.
Now that they're finally over that hump, they got that monkey off their back, kind of. But you mentioned Romo. I mean, he still didn't. He had 3 touchdown passes, but he still didn't do a whole lot. All of his, other than his passes to Dez Bryant, which, let's be honest, a lot of people would look good throwing the ball to Dez Bryant.
Yes.
His other leading receiver was DeMarco Murray with a bunch of dump downs and check downs, and I mean, it wasn't like he was pushing the ball downfield to Terrence Williams or anybody else. And the other guy that had a big game was Cole Beasley with basically wide receiver screens, and Beasley did the rest. So I definitely think that Romo being back or whatever is kind of a storyline that's going to get played up this week and doesn't really have a lot of merit to it. But anyway, that was one loss for you in Week 14. We'll move on to your lone win on the week, and that was the conclusion of a teaser. So you had Denver coming down to a pick-em to close out your 13 teaser, and fortunately for you, you were teasing them down because they didn't cover the spread. They did win the game, however, 24-17 over the Bills. Dan, anything you gleaned from that one?
Everything that we said happened. Everything that we said would happen did happen. Buffalo's defense kept them in a game just enough that they crept in the back door and got the late cover. But we said that. We said there was a very good chance that Buffalo stays within the number here, but Denver was not going to lose to Buffalo. And that's exactly what happened. Again, like we say every week, no use bragging about a win when you're taking 10 points off the spread.
Right. And the only upside is you didn't lose it.
That's true.
So
although we did, when we were picking the last leg of that teaser, we almost went with New Orleans.
I'm pretty glad I think I talked you out of that one.
You told me that Denver's a better bet. We were discussing between the two of them.
Yeah, and I think we're not gonna. I'll touch on that game a little later, but the Saints having such a poor month at home has really got to be one of the more surprising storylines in the league.
Absolutely. I mean, that was the one thing you could count on. I mean, in one of the fantasy leagues that I lost and I'm out on, thank Drew Brees for that. And it's not even like he was on the road against a good defense. He was at home against a horrible defense.
Yeah, just certainly one of the more surprising things to happen is just the.
But they did cut fifth string wide receiver Joe Morgan this week because apparently has a bad attitude. So
yeah, that'll fix everything.
I think going forward things are looking positive for the New Orleans Saints that still control their own.
Yeah, as long as they beat the Falcons, they
I refuse to say they control their own destiny.
Yes, that's the new thing in journalism circles is that you can't control your own destiny because the very nature of the destiny is that you can't control it. Yes, but their other big solution was benching 2013 first-round pick Kenny Vaccaro at safety.
Yes.
So that's their big moves this week. I'm sure that's going to fix everything. We'll see. All right, so that was your win, was closing out that teaser. Your first push of the year was with Minnesota. You like them -6. They won the game by 6 points exactly, so it was Minnesota 30, New York Jets 24. A little more life out of the Jets than you might have expected in this one, huh?
A little more life out of the Jets. Minnesota got off to a really hot start, and it looked like this was going to be a laugher. It ended up, on one hand, I got really lucky because the game went to overtime. And instead of just kicking a field goal to win it, Minnesota was able to score a touchdown on a play that no NFL team should ever score a touchdown on, a 1-yard screen pass in which the receiver pretty much just caught it and then was like, hey, no one's going to try to tackle me. I'm going to run 85 yards.
Yeah, it's always good.
But you know what's crap? Why don't they kick the extra point?
Because the game's over.
I understand that, but it's part of the same play.
It's not. No, it's a separate play.
College, they do it.
Well, a lot of stuff in college is different than this.
It's true.
So, I mean, I think you can. I don't think you have any room to gripe about what happened, considering that it went to overtime and they won by 6 in overtime, which isn't always the most likely event.
Very true.
In that situation.
Although with Geno Smith, I was just expecting there'd be a pick 6 in overtime, and then they'll do it that way.
Yeah, we touched on this in an earlier podcast this year, but still waiting on that first overtime win by 9 points when a team kicks a field goal on their first drive and then maybe gets a pick 6 on the next drive.
I can't wait for that. And you know what? I hope the spread of that game is like 8. I hope it's
7 or 8. That's going to be hilarious, and I also can't wait for that one. All right, so that was your first push of the year, and your second loss on your last play of the week. Last week, you liked Philly as a pick'em. Of course, as most people know, in Philadelphia, that didn't go quite as hoped as they lost outright to the Seahawks, 24-14. Dan, Seattle defense looks like it's back, doesn't it?
Seattle defense definitely looks like it's back. They look scary. Everyone's saying, hey, look, same old Mark Sanchez, when the way I look at it is, at this point, I don't really see any quarterback looking too good against the Seattle defense. But the one thing, and I don't like to come off as Mr. Sour Grapes, I do sometimes, especially on Twitter in the moment, but like when I really go and look back at things, I try to be logical. But when I looked at the schedule, it said Eagles at Seahawks. It didn't say Eagles they were at Seahawks, Eagles versus Seahawks. It didn't say Eagles versus Seahawks and the entire officiating crew.
No, That's usually not listed on just the main schedule. Maybe,
It's just assumed.
maybe you got to go in like the game preview section.
So Dallas wins on Thursday night. So NFL makes a call to the referee saying, we want this Sunday night game to be of utmost importance, the Eagles-Dallas game. Make sure that Philly doesn't come away with a victory here. The fix was in.
So I know I saw the offensive lineman 10 yards downfield on the
20 yards downfield.
The one pass play that didn't get called. And there was some. What else were your major concerns about the officiating? Your major gripes?
Well, what Seattle does is they commit penalties on every play, knowing that the referees can only call them on some plays. And when they do call them, Pete Carroll screams at them and Richard Sherman screams. So the refs are just like, you know what? I'm not going to call this penalty because I don't want to deal with these guys because they're such whiny babies. How many? There were 4 or 5 plays that were pass interference on Seattle that was not called, that would have extended drives. And then those same ticky-tack plays were called as pass interference when the Eagles did it to Seattle. And it's like, this isn't the NBA. This isn't like LeBron James gets calls that Nate Robinson's not going to get or anything like that. This is the NFL. A flag's a flag. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't. Seattle, just because Seattle has this ferocious defense with this great reputation, they can't just do whatever they want. There was a handful of holdings that were never called, and they're blatant. I'm not like watching replays and zooming in to try to find them. These are just things I saw while watching the game. I just hope that the refereeing crew, now the Eagles' record with that crew is 1-5.
How dare you besmirch Nate Robinson's NBA reputation, first of all?
You know what the weirdest thing is? I was giving that analogy in the heat of the moment, and I was just thinking who's like a scrub player that referees don't like, they would never give calls to, and that's for some reason Nate Robinson came to mind.
Nate Robinson was given 43 attempts in the dunk contest to beat Andre Iguodala.
That's true. In the dunk contest,
if anyone's given leeway on stuff, it's Nate Robinson. But no, I take your point, and there certainly were some questionable.
Don't get me wrong, the Eagles didn't play well. The Eagles did not play well.
They did not play well. I don't think the officiating determined the outcome of that game. I think Seattle.
It stopped any chance the Eagles had of momentum. It stopped many drives. There were a lot of drives when the Eagles were around between the 40s when these calls were made, and the biggest one, the illegal man downfield that they didn't call, extended the Seahawks drive that led to a touchdown and got them right back in the game.
All right. Well,
I know I'm crying. I know I'm whining, and I know that. But watching the game, I can accept when the Eagles lose. The Eagles have lost a couple games this year. The game against Green Bay, they just lost. The game against Arizona, they should have made a 4th and 1 touchdown, but they didn't. But whatever, they still just lost. I really felt like we were at least robbed of a good finish, of a good game by the refereeing crew.
All right, so maybe this is Exhibit A for why you don't bet with your hometown team.
Because you get sour grapes like this?
It could be. All right, so we're going to move into our next segment now. Now time for Stump the Sharp.
Riley Cooper.
Not right.
Darren Sproles.
And Dan, I got a few questions for you here.
Ooh, questions. Haven't done this in a couple weeks.
All right, so start you off with a softball here. Which team in the NFL in Week 14 suffered the worst home loss in its history of the current QB and coach era? So since that team has had their current quarterback and coaching combination, they suffered their worst home loss.
And she suffered the worst home loss under the QB.
So I don't know about.
I don't think Zach Mettenberger.
I don't know if Gus Bradley and Blake Bortles suffered their worst home loss or whatever. It's somebody that's been around for a while.
I mean, I think I know what you're getting at here. We were discussing this earlier with this being the New Orleans Saints.
It is, and they lost by 31. That was the worst home loss since Drew Brees and Sean Payton took over their respective positions for the franchise. And I don't think we really need to touch on this anymore. We kind of alluded to it earlier.
Cam Newton waited for during the week for his turnovers.
Because his car turned over 4 times.
That was the joke. You see what I did there?
I see what you did there, yeah. Kind of a shame coming off, if not his best performance of the year, his second best. And, Carolina has an awful record, but they're also right there in that terrible NFC South. And now they're going to have to rely on Derek Anderson at least this week, if not going forward for the rest of the season.
Hey, Derek Anderson is responsible for a quarter of their wins this year.
That's true. He did win in week 1, but I don't think anyone would argue that Derek Anderson gives them a better chance to win this week than a not hospitalized Cam Newton.
Carolina is anything like Philadelphia. There are people on the radio calling in to say that Derek Anderson does give them a better chance to win.
That's true. There are really unrealistic, I won't say dumb, but disillusioned sports fans out there in every city, I imagine. All right, so that was your first one. A little tougher. You got to ballpark this one. So, how many first downs do you think Peyton Manning threw for last week against the Bills?
Well, he had 2 fantasy points, so I know the answer is going to be very low. How many first downs? I think this is going to be a ridiculously low number. I'm going to say 5.
It's even lower than that.
What?
The answer is 3.
Wow.
He threw for 3 first downs all game. By far the fewest of his career, which spans over 250 games, and they still won the game, which A, speaks to how much that running game has progressed, and B, I think it really talks about how good that Buffalo defense is.
Buffalo defense is very good. They're a team. Kyle Orton threw the ball 57 times last week. And that's not how you're going to win a game with Kyle Orton winning 57 times. It's almost not fair to the defense. They're having such a good season.
Yeah, I don't understand the coaching there. They make a lot of really weird personnel and game planning decisions a lot of times, especially offensively.
They were down early, so when you're down really early, I don't think they're going to hand the ball off as much.
They weren't down a lot, though. Denver only finished the game with 24 points. Like, how far behind could you have considered yourself to be when that was the case?
I want to say at one point, wasn't it like 21-3 or something like? I don't remember off the top of my head. It was 24-3 Denver in the third quarter. So I guess they got to the point where they were
the second
just
half was throwing every time. That makes sense. But yeah, I agree. It's just really a shame that a really great season by the Buffalo defense is pretty much being wasted, and they're over 500, and
there's reason for optimism.
They're still like looking, just on the outside looking in that crowded AFC playoff picture, but
they're not getting in.
They're not getting in. There's too many teams ahead of them that they would have to leapfrog at this point, and it's basically because of the offense's inability to have a consistent performance from week to week. So, real shame for that defense. All right, and finally, Dan, we saw the movie Top 5 this week.
Yes, we did. Very, very good movie.
Definitely a film that you guys out there should catch when you're not watching sports in your free time. So, here we've done this before, but let's just see if you can rattle them off. I'm looking for the top 5 offenses and the top 5 defenses in the NFL by DVOA.
They're going to ask me who my top 5 favorite rappers of all time were.
All right, give me that.
I can in a second. Top 5 offenses and top 5 defenses. Offenses, we got to go Green Bay.
They're one. They're number 1, too.
Still want to say Denver's up there.
Number 2.
Of course, the mighty Jacksonville Jaguars.
They are not even in the top 10, let alone the top 5.
I know, I'm just joking.
Yeah.
I'm going to say, because they've had a couple games where they've absolutely exploded, is Pittsburgh in the top 5?
They are. They're number 3.
Oh, wow, look at that. 1, 2, 3
You're going right down the list. Must have spied my sheet.
I swear to God, I am on the other side of the room. I have not seen them. Would Philly be in the top 5?
No, they're not in the top 10, and that offense it's not been good all year. It's been the defense and special teams carrying them, so
right.
Not surprising that they fall short.
Indy
is also not in the top 10, and they've had a couple bad weeks recently. The offense was not good at all against Cleveland. Cleveland could have strung some drives together last week. They would have pulled the upset there and saved Brian Hoyer's starting position.
If Josh Gordon caught a pass that he actually had 2 plays that he should have made. I'll give him a pass on that late Hail Mary that he didn't catch, even though it was in his hands. But even before that, the Colts never would have gotten the ball back if he just caught a ball that was very catchable.
Yeah.
He looks fat, which is kind of unfortunate.
I mean, it's kind of to be expected. He's not allowed at the team's training facilities all year.
So as munchies he gets when he smokes all that weed.
Yeah, that's true. and he was working at a car dealership, so that's not good for your fitness level.
I'm gonna say the Pats have to be in the top.
Pats are number 4.
All right, so there's one.
You got one more guess at number 5.
All right, one more guess, and then we'll keep this rolling. I'm gonna go with the Baltimore Ravens.
They're 7.
Ah!
A little bit. They've been up near the top all season. Number 5 is Seattle.
Okay.
And, they've also been a team that's been up near the top all season in offense. Even when their defense was struggling, it was kind of their offense carrying them earlier in the season. And it's a lot to do with Russell Wilson's work in that running game, and obviously Marshawn Lynch, because they haven't had a great passing season. Receivers aren't anything to write home about. But, when you got a quarterback that's able to put up 100 yards himself on the ground in any given week, that's really something special there. So that's your top 5: Green Bay, Denver, Pittsburgh, New England, Seattle. How about defense, Dan?
How about the aforementioned Buffalo Bills defense?
They're number 2. Really a dark horse when it comes to people, or a unit that teams wouldn't think about being as formidable as they are. Buffalo, number 2 defense in the league.
How about... See, Seattle struggled so early that I don't know if their late surge of good defense has put them in the top 5 of DVOA. I'll go Arizona Cardinals.
Arizona is 6.
Oh, I can't... I would have... I was very, very confident in that pick. How about Miami Dolphins?
Miami's 8.
See, I'm better with the offense than the defense.
Is hard.
It's hard because you don't really know what makes a good defense. A team when you look at the advanced stats.
Right. Well, how about this team's been...
St. Louis has to be in the top 5.
No, they're 9.
If St. Louis is in the top 5, this is a ridiculous statistic.
It's not the last month. It's over the whole course of the whole season. They didn't have a sack. They had 1 sack for the first 6 weeks.
That's true. So I guess...
This team, how about the team they've been the top defense for pretty much all season? Everybody's been hyping up their defense all year.
Houston? No, not Houston. The only thing good about Houston's defense is J.J. Watt.
Yeah, it's J.J. Watt and a bunch of nobodies.
Everyone's been hyping a defense all year, and I'm not thinking of it.
Yeah.
The Lions?
The Lions, they're number 1. They've been number 1 for quite a while.
So DVOA kind of rewards you for being good from start to finish rather than having a couple bad weeks and a couple really, really dominant weeks.
It's an all-encompassing statistic.
Right.
It's not a power poll.
So I got 2 right now.
Okay.
I got Buffalo and what was the one I just said?
You got Detroit and Buffalo.
Detroit and Buffalo.
If you get any more wrong, I'm just going to read off the rest.
That's
you got to.
I have to go 3 in a row.
Yeah.
Odds are against me to do this. Cincinnati.
No, they're not even.
I didn't think so. All right.
All right. So number 3 is Denver. They've been up there pretty much all year. Number 4 is Seattle.
Okay.
They've climbed back into it after a pretty mediocre start. They've just been playing lights out lately. Not a surprise to see them back up there. Number 5 is a little surprising, just given what their record is, but that's San Francisco. So
I thought of them a little bit because even the games they've won and lost, it's usually they're all in the 20s and early teens.
Yeah, it's really just been the offense just completely being inept and not helping out the defense at all. Defense has been good. So that's your top 5 on defense: Detroit, Buffalo, Denver, Seattle, and San Francisco. All right, so finally we're going to get to your Week 15 plays. Listeners out there, if you want to fade them, maybe that could be a profitable thing for you. If you just want to take some of our analysis and make your own conclusions, that's fine too. But either way, Dan, you have 3 plays in Week 15. The first one is the Thursday night game. You like St. Louis -4 at home against Arizona. Talk to us about that pick.
I love this pick because you have to score points to cover a spread. Unless St. Louis wants to win this game 3-0, I think that Arizona's going to have a really hard time struggling to score
as an underdog, you don't have to score points to cover a spread.
St. Louis is just their defense has been on a roll too. Is that 2 straight shutouts they've had?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think 2 straight shutouts. They're going to go up against they're playing at home where they've had a lot of success. And I've actually on this show I've gone over the fact that the last 2 years for some reason their offense just is significantly better at home while their defense remains the same dominant force they've been. And Arizona, I really got to admire what they do. I think Bruce Arians is an incredible coach, and I think that they're awesome for being where they are right now. But every week someone else gets hurt. I mean, it started with Palmer, and now Ellington's out for the year. Even John Brown is hurt now.
You can't go on without John Brown.
You can't go on without John Brown.
He's a former Gorilla.
They do have another Jay Brown to plug right in there, and
Pittsburgh State Gorillas.
The Pittsburgh, is that what they're called, the Gorillas?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's really cool.
There should be more colleges with nicknamed the Gorillas.
Yeah, no more Wildcats or
way too many. There should be like half the Wildcats should have to change.
They should play each other for the right
to remain Wildcats.
Yeah, they should, like Kentucky and Villanova should play each other in basketball.
Absolutely.
You know,
Arizona.
Yeah, just have a tournament, and only the winner of the tournament gets to keep the name Wildcats, and then the other 15 teams or whatever have to change.
So basically, St. Louis's secondary has to worry about Drew Stanton. The run defense has to worry about Marion Grice and Stephon Taylor. And this team is...
And Kerwin Williams, guy who led the team in carries last year.
Kerwin Williams had a great week, but going forward, like if someone says, oh, this guy had 100 yards rushing, I want to pick him up and start him in fantasy, I would not recommend doing that.
No, don't pick up Kerwin Williams unless you're really desperate.
Exactly. And if you're really desperate, you're probably not alive in fantasy football.
Well, that's not true, though. I'm still alive, and I've lost Brandon Marshall, Denard Robinson, and Andre Ellington all within the past week. So I'm scraping the end of my bench. I'm still. Are you
starting Kerwin Williams?
No, I'm still not in Kerwin Williams territory. I am back in Mark Ingram territory, though.
I had a friend at work who was asking me who he should start for his semifinal matchup, Manziel or Tannehill this week.
Man, how much is that entry fee?
I have no idea. But back to the game.
Yeah. All right.
I just like it. I think St. Louis, if they can score more than 20 points, they're going to cover the spread because Arizona is going to have a really, really hard time getting on the board.
I agree. I like this side here. You mentioned teams without its starting quarterback and their starting running back. Fitzgerald has been injured. Defensively, they're still playing well, but you know, the Rams' defense has just been playing awesome, and that D-line has finally showed up like we expected it to at the beginning of the year. They had to struggle through that first 6 weeks, but they had about one sack. But ever since then, they've been tearing things up, and that Arizona offensive line is not known for its protection skills or its run blocking, so I don't see them being able to move the ball at all, and I like the Rams here too.
As long as the Rams can avoid throwing a pick six or something like that, I think they should.
Don't beat themselves. Yeah.
Exactly.
And I also talked about this with you off air. I think the Rams are destined to be like the 9-7 team that has a great run to end the season, which actually hurts them because it hurts their draft position, and then they just miss the playoffs, and everyone's kind of high on them next year. But then they still don't have a quarterback, so that seems like their destiny to me.
Man, the Rams were my 45-1 Super Bowl pick this year, and it really looks like a couple of breaks have gone another way. I'd be looking at a real nice ticket right now.
They're not eliminated yet, Dan, so who knows?
Right.
All right, so that's your first pick, Rams -4. Your second play, you like Houston +7 on the road against Indianapolis. So, Dan, Indy hasn't looked great last few weeks. Almost lost to Cleveland on the road last week, but now they're back home, but you still like Houston, huh?
I mean, I think if Andrew Luck was not Indy's quarterback, they might have 4 wins right now.
Might have less. They're really bad outside of Andrew Luck.
And you saw what happens when Andrew Luck struggles. He struggled in the first half against Cleveland, and that team looked absolutely terrible. Luckily, he was able to get his stuff together and have a really good second half, and Cleveland decided to stop trying to score, whatever. Houston needs this win. This is a huge game. It's a division game, and we talked about at one point on this show that Indianapolis had the highest % chance of any team in football to make the playoffs. Now it looks like it would have been awesome for Houston if Cleveland was able to hold on, because then this game would actually bring them into a tie, I believe.
Yeah, if they won this one, they would be back in a tie with the Colts if Indy had lost last week, and then that would also tie up the tiebreaker because they lost the game to the Colts earlier this season. So basically, this is Houston's playoff game.
They're going to pull out all the stops, any kind of crazy, not trick play, but any kind of thing they've been saving or not showing. You know, Ryan Fitzpatrick has a whole bag of those tricks that...
I was going to say, do they have a trick where Ryan Fitzpatrick is no longer their quarterback? Like they can pull somebody else out that's better? Because that might be their best chance.
But here's the thing, Ryan Fitzpatrick is fine against the media. He just looks really, really, really average against good defenses. Indy does not have a good defense.
No, I wouldn't say they do.
And for a division game that's going to have huge if Indianapolis wins this game, they're in the playoffs. They can pretty much start resting guys unless they want to go for like home field or whatever. If Houston loses this game, they're done. They can start booking tee times, all that. I think a game of that magnitude inside the division, 7 points is just too much. Especially when Indianapolis hasn't been playing.
No, they haven't been playing well. So the Cleveland defense played very well against Indy last week. They put their offense in a lot of great situations as far as field position. And if the offense hadn't been 3-and-out, giving Luck chance upon chance to get back in that game, then they would have won. So with Cleveland's defense, which isn't good at all, was able to do that. I think Houston's defense, which is above average just purely because J.J. Watt carries everybody else to that above average mark, I think they'll be able to do well in this week here. Reggie Wayne out. They're down to Dante Moncrief as their second wide receiver.
Sadly, is an upgrade at their second wide receiver.
Yeah, Boom Herron is their best running back they're left with now. Like they're just really down to spare parts. It's basically Andrew Luck and T.Y. Hilton and who knows on offense.
Now, this joke is not original. It's been all over the place last couple of weeks. But nicknaming Indy's backfield Boom and Bust is just hilarious.
Yeah, it's really
That's
good.
Just one of the funniest things in a long time.
Man, Trent Richardson's the worst. He really is. All right, so Houston +7, and finally your last pick of Week 15. You like New York Giants -7 at home against Washington. So Dan, Giants aren't very good, and you're comfortable with them giving 7 points here?
Yeah, this is one of those games where if I'm going to just feel so stupid if it doesn't hit, because A, over 70% of the public is on the side. I don't usually like to play games where there's that much of the public on it. And B, it's two bad teams. And playing games that have two bad teams, Week 15, is generally a recipe for disaster. But you know what? If I can fade the Redskins under 10 right now, I don't see how I can pass that up. New York, say nothing else but New York, they've beaten some bad teams this year. They've lost all the good teams they've played, but they've beaten the bad ones, and they're still trying. They still have guys like Odell Beckham Jr. He's having a blast the last couple of weeks, bursting onto the scene. He's not going to stop trying. Guys like Larry Donnell, guys like Andre Williams, these guys don't know if they're going to be starters next year. They don't know if they're going to be replaced. They need to show this team that these guys belong in big roles. And quite frankly, Eli's not going anywhere. As much as he probably costs more than he's worth to the team, I can't see the Giants just dropping him.
Nobody's going the Hall of Fame.
Oh, man. We don't have to have that conversation again. But you have a team like that at home still trying against a team like the Redskins that have completely quit on the season. It's almost painful to watch. The body language, nobody even wants to be on the field anymore, except for Colt McCoy. He was really trying really, really hard. He might not even be playing.
He's not very good.
He said today he expects to play. We don't know. They said if he doesn't, it'll be RG3. It doesn't matter. This team's a disaster. They have players that haven't been playing because they're hurt. The players who are playing don't want to. Deshaun Jackson is questionable for Sunday. Brandon Merriweather is questionable for Sunday. It's just an absolute mess. And if I can fade them under 10 points, I got to do it.
All right. I hesitate giving 7 points in any NFC game. They're always really close.
NFC game or NFC East game?
NFC East game. Yeah, not NFC, obviously. So, yeah, just divisional games within the NFC East, every year they seem like they're close. Giants aren't good. I know Washington's been awful. 7 points is a lot for me. I'd be hesitant with this one, but I understand where you're coming from with all the reasoning you gave.
It's not a bet on New York at all. It's just, if Washington's playing a team with a pulse, I will take under 10 points.
All right. So there's your 3 plays for this week, everybody. St. Louis -4, Houston +7, New York Giants -7. Good luck with your picks, and everybody enjoy Week 15. Talk to you later.
Good luck, guys.